What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So yesterday, there was a lot of talk around Sony. Specifically, another controversy pops up online because what we kind of thought was Sony's strategy when it came to upgrading from the PS4 to the PS5 with their first-party titles going forward was completely thrown out the window with Horizon Forbidden West, and we're going to go over all of those details here today. Also, we have several events now coming up. One from Sony, where it looks like this is going to be their big push for PS5 games going into next year, and THQ Nordic celebrating their 10th anniversary with, according to them, some pretty big reveals from the past. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Nintendo, as they did reveal a new game for the holidays. This was done over on Twitter, and we can see this tweet here, where they say Big Brain Academy Brain vs. Brain is coming to Nintendo Switch on December 3rd. Flex your brain power or engage in a battle of brains with your family and friends. I know there's some fans out there for Big Brain Academy. It was cool to see this just kind of announced out of nowhere over on Twitter, and the trailer that they showed really seemed to lean into the multiplayer side of things, which makes sense for the Switch. They even showed being able to use, as they said, ghost data of other people you would be playing against, and you can kind of play against them that way when you're on your own. And Big Brain Academy has always been a game that was easy to sell back in the day to parents because it would basically disguise brain exercises or just learning in general as a game, and it worked really well. Kids really seem to like it, and adults as well. It's just kind of works to keep you sharp. But anyone who's a big fan of Big Brain Academy, make sure you check this one out in December. Like I said, the multiplayer side of things seems pretty cool for the Switch. Also, we did have a big update for PlayStation Now, which is Sony's subscription streaming, but also download service. That's something people tend to not realize, that you can download a lot of the games on PlayStation Now. Really, it's just the PS3 titles you mostly can't download and you have to stream. But it looks like a whole bunch of Final Fantasy games are going to be added to this service over the next several months. They put this card up over on PlayStation blog, where they say every month until January 2022, we'll add another chapter of the Final Fantasy series to PlayStation Now, so you can download or stream these titles on your PS4 or PS5 console, or stream on PC. Take a look at the full lineup, which you can see the card that has Final Fantasy VII, September 7th. They have Final Fantasy VIII Remastered, October 5th. Final Fantasy IX on November 2nd, Final Fantasy X 10-2 HD Remaster on December 7th, and then we start up 2022 with Final Fantasy XII on January 4th. Obviously, a ton of game here, a lot of stuff to play with all these Final Fantasy games ranging from 7 up to 12. I certainly think people should check out at least Final Fantasy IX. That seems to be the one that a lot of people regard as the best, but tends to be overlooked compared to something like Final Fantasy VII or even Final Fantasy VIII. Either way, though, if you have PlayStation Now, it looks like you have a ton of Final Fantasy to look forward to here in the coming months. Oh, and speaking of Final Fantasy XIII was added to Xbox Game Pass on the console and on PC, and something interesting is going on with this version of the game, and I might have to check this one out, because when Final Fantasy XIII originally went to Steam, it wasn't a great version of the game. The port was pretty bad, and actually a lot of the community worked together to patch the game, essentially, and make it usable on PC. Kind of similar to what happened with Nier Automata. Well, take a look at this here. This was tweeted out by Wario64, who noted that the Xbox Game Pass PC version of Final Fantasy XIII appears to be a different build. This from Virtuos, who did Final Fantasy XII, Zodiac Age, and 10-2 HD Remaster, is credited in this version. And it also appears to have an updated launcher that you can see here. So now people are wondering, does this mean that there has been extra work done to it like we saw with Nier Automata? And I guess now people are just going to have to download it on PC and check it out. That's something I will do, because I know Final Fantasy XIII gets a lot of hate online, but I enjoyed that when it released. It was actually a really good showcase for why Blu-ray was significantly better over DVD at the time, where you got it with the 360 and the cinematics were all like low resolution and pixelated and all of this. And then you have like 3 discs, but with the PS3, you had 1 Blu-ray and everything looked really good. Either way, though, I'll check it out on PC, see if anything's really been updated here. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this whole PlayStation controversy around Horizon Forbidden West. Now, we know it's coming out at the end of February, and yesterday, Sony decided to update their PlayStation blog and make announcements around the different versions of the game that you can purchase. Remember, we have 2 different systems that this game is going to be heading to, that being the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5, but also a couple of collector's editions. Now, the controversy appears to be popping up around the upgrade path. And what we've kind of become accustomed to now, along with these $70 games, is that if you buy something on the PS4, you would spend some sort of money to upgrade then to the PS5 version, whether it's Death Stranding we've seen that's coming out here soon, or Ghost of Tsushima. Generally, there's some kind of upcharge thrown in there to make up for that $10 difference between the $60 and $70. But Horizon seems to be different, and it's certainly not something I was expecting here, but let's take a look at the different editions that they went ahead and laid out over on PlayStation Blog. So there are two different standard editions. Obviously, we have the PS4 and the PS5. Those are priced as you would expect, $60 for the PS4, $70 for the PS5. They then have a digital deluxe edition. This version is $80, and the odd thing about this one is this appears to be what you have to buy if you want to get both versions of the game. There is no upgrade path. In fact, over on their FAQ, or frequently asked questions, they do have a question: can I upgrade my Horizon Forbidden West PS4 version to the PS5 version? They say to access both the PS4 and PS5 versions of Horizon Forbidden West, you need to purchase the Digital Deluxe, Collector's, or Regala editions. Dual entitlement does not apply to the standard and special editions. Dual entitlement, that I think the last time I heard that was from EA. So that's good company there for Sony to be in. Now, I said we have the standard for the PS4, the standard for the PS5, and then we have that digital deluxe. We also have a special edition for the PS4 and a special edition for the PS5, which is $10 more than those standard editions, so $70 on the PS4, $80 on the PS5. You can see some of the things that they do include here, again, posted up through screenshots on their PlayStation blog, which I do like the steelbook that they have here. I think it looks pretty good overall. There was something that people were pointing out with the digital deluxe edition that has like photo mode unlocks. That is not the photo mode itself that's unlocked. It's like extra filters and different things that you can have for your character's appearance during photo mode. That was clarified a bit better over on Twitter by one of the developers. Now, looking at the collector's editions, we have two different ones. Now, the basic collector's edition they have here comes with a nice looking statue. You can see they do have that steelbook in there, a mini art book. Strangely enough, though, no physical copy of the game. I don't like this trend in games. We've had this for the last, year or so. Actually, I think EA did this with Mass Effect Andromeda even, where the game didn't even come with a collector's edition. Again, strange stuff there, but they're giving you a steelbook. You're spending $200 for the collector's edition or $260 for the Regala edition, but it doesn't come with a physical copy of the game. No, it does come with the dual entitlement, which is for the PS4 and PS5 version, and it does make me believe that they are tying that just to the digital only version of the game, because any physical copy you buy for Horizon Forbidden West either has to be for the PS4 or the PS5 with no upgrade. So for the most part, this is going to affect people who have a PlayStation 4 and would look to then get a PS5 maybe after Horizon Forbidden West comes out. If you have a PS5 now and you're already thinking about spending $70 on Horizon Forbidden West from what you've seen, this is probably fine for you. Like, you're not going to be affected by the idea of an upgrade path really at all. It's just going to be business as usual for you when the game comes out. But there are a lot of people who just can't get a PS5. Like, it's very difficult to find these things now. They're still not back in retail stores, and they're still marked up pretty well on eBay. I have noticed they've fallen a bit. I'm starting to see the PS5s come down to under $800 on eBay, which tells me that profit margin for resellers is getting cut into a bit there, and they might even move on from it because it's not as profitable as they would like. Here's hoping. I'm crossing my fingers for that outcome. But right now, the situation seems kind of confusing for what should be a simple upgrade, especially when you look over at what Microsoft does with Smart Delivery. And the weird thing about all of this is that Sony put themselves in this position. This is the most stuff they've done with cross-gen ever. Like, they could have just done a clean break from the PS4 and still made some games on the PS4, but then made specific games for the PlayStation 5. Instead, they're kind of going the opposite direction with things like Gran Turismo 7 and God of War going to the PS4 as well, even like, 2 years, we think, maybe after the console released. You think God of War is coming out in the first half of 2022. I'm thinking it's coming out in the second half of 2022, which means we're going to have to deal with something similar like this for God of War, Gran Turismo, and so on. So I'm not really sure how Sony is going to continue navigating this cross-gen period for them. I can tell you, I'm excited for it to end so we can stop hearing about things like dual entitlement. Next up, let's stick with Sony here as we have a big event to look forward to for them. They did announce this yesterday and we can see the card here. The PS5 PlayStation Showcase. Join us Thursday, September 9th, 2021, 1 p.m. Pacific time. And it looks like this is mostly going to be focused around PlayStation 5, as they say here. You've been awfully patient. We thank you for that. And now we're looking forward to showing you what we've been working on. The showcase will weigh in at around 40 minutes and include updates from PlayStation Studios and some of the industry's most imaginative developers for games releasing this holiday and beyond. And stick around after the presentation to get more updates from some of the studio teams featured in the showcase. One thing to note, PlayStation's next generation of VR won't make an appearance this time, but there will still be plenty of great PS5 games from developers large and small. Now, this has obviously sent the internet into a frenzy trying to speculate as to what will be at this event and if we will see some big announcements. Well, take a look at Andy Robinson here over VGC. Says, I've been told there are some super announcements in this. So, I mean, we'll throw some predictions out there and you can leave your best predictions down below in the comments. Let's start. I do believe we're going to see God of War here. That's obvious. They're setting up next year to have God of War most likely anchor the year in the holiday season. And I guess trailer, maybe gameplay for it. I do wonder if Ghostwire Tokyo, which got delayed into next year, would make an appearance as well. And some sort of new multiplayer game. I don't know if they're going to show off like a Killzone or Resistance or something, but something from Sony to really get people playing on PlayStation Network a bit more here, as they are typically more single-player focused with a lot of their narrative-driven experiences. Naughty Dog could be there. Maybe that Last of Us remake shows up. I think that would be good. And hey, that could even tie into the multiplayer side of things where maybe they unveil like factions or something there. Now, if we want to get out there a bit more, maybe Silent Hills is there. I mean, look, Silent Hill has been rumored for a while. There's been talks that Sony and Konami were working out a deal for Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid, so I guess you never know. And Nate continues to push this. So either next week we're going to have MVG winning again on the podcast, or finally Nate can show up and tell us all about this Silent Hill game that he's been alluding to for what feels like over a year now. I'd also like to see a bit more about Final Fantasy XVI, and I know Square said that they weren't going to be ready to show it later on this month at Tokyo Game Show, but maybe that's because they were setting up an entire presentation for this PlayStation Showcase. We can always hope, but the big thing, and I think this will be really cool, even to close out with, if it's not closing out with God of War and they want to have something really cool for like the maybe further into the future, a new Infamous game. And wow, can you imagine Infamous, which looks great on the PlayStation 4, you can still play it on the PS5 through backwards compatibility, but like that game on the PS5 with the technology they have available now, ray tracing, all this, that would be an awesome game to see revealed. But like I said, let me know your best predictions down below. It sounds like this is going to be a big event to look forward to, as we've been waiting for PlayStation, Sony to say something about the platform going into 2022, and looks like we're getting that next week. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about another event here coming up in the next couple of weeks. This one from THQ Nordic, celebrating their 10th anniversary when they became THQ Nordic. They were like Nordic Games, then they picked up THQ and they changed their name out to THQ Nordic. This was in 2011, but they did put out this trailer here, just kind of getting everyone, I guess, hyped up for this anniversary event. This will take place September 17th. That'll be at 12 p.m. Pacific time. And according to the press release they sent out, it'll take you on a journey through time and space and have a return of legendary franchises, including some for which fans have been waiting decades to get their hands on a new installment, as well as sequels to beloved games. And I know what you're thinking immediately, time splitters, right? Well, take a look over here on Twitter. Someone did bring that up, saying, hey, is my birth month though? Maybe some time splitters news. THQ Nordic said, sorry, it's not our IP, but this tweet might make you happy. This is, by the way, going to be confusing to a lot of people just because of how ridiculous the amount of studios, publishers, IPs underneath of the umbrella for Embracer Group, which is massive now. In fact, the person below that made this flowchart here, which R3, and yeah, it's not exactly the easiest thing to follow without a diagram, but that would be, I believe, Deep Silver would deal with everything that's going on there with Free Radicals and Time Splitter. So some more realistic expectations. If we are looking back in time, you could think of maybe a sequel to Titan Quest. Remember, they did some downloadable content here for, I believe, an expansion that just dropped randomly for a pretty old game. Maybe they were testing the market to see if there was interest in Titan Quest, and they had teased something about Titan Quest in 2021, so maybe they are going to unveil the sequel there. I kind of feel like Darksiders, it's time for Darksiders 4. I mean, Darksiders 3 came out, 3 years ago now? Actually, it's in November, it'll be 3 years. So maybe we can get the Darksiders 4 teaser, a trailer, something as we head into 2022. But the game that I would really like to see here, a sequel to one we have not had in 10 years, would be Red Faction. We had Red Faction Armageddon. That was on the Xbox 360, the PS3, and PC. And then we had the remaster, which was the remastered edition that came out pretty recently, and they put it on the Switch, the Xbox, PlayStation, pretty much everywhere. And I had a lot of fun with that game, and it still holds up. Really, the destruction aspect does, but that made me think, wow, this was done on the Xbox 360 and the PS3 way back in 2011. So what can they do now with a PlayStation 5 or a Series X or a beefed up PC? The destruction would be off the charts, and I would love to see it. Like I said, Red Faction has always been a lot of fun, but unfortunately, they mentioned back in 2011 that they were kind of stepping away from the franchise because it hadn't been selling that well. But I wonder if Remastered Edition kind of brought things back a bit, and they were like, okay, wow, people do remember this franchise, because they had mentioned afterwards in 2018 that they would like to do something else with Red Faction. And you know what? The 10th anniversary here for THQ Nordic lining up with the last release we had 10 years ago for Red Faction kind of makes sense. So I'm crossing my fingers for Red Faction, but I'm certainly expecting something from like Darksiders and maybe Titan Quest. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a little poll that I posted up yesterday where I asked, Sony PlayStation event is set for next week. Do we finally see this rumored Silent Hill game? 62% said this Silent Hill game doesn't exist. MVG is right. 26% said no, and only 12% of you have confidence in Nate right now with a yes. Wow. You know what? I do think it could be there, and that would be really funny because Nate's been really harping on the idea of this Silent Hill game being a thing with Sony, and MVG has been right every single PlayStation event. So you know what? Maybe it's time that Nate got his due and he could show up on the podcast and finally say, hey, look, there's Silent Hill. And we'll finish up with a comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Blue saying, as an artist, my favorite thing about game manuals was the artwork. We mainly see concept art and character designs on websites like ArtStation. Now they will send you a plastic case with a slip inside to download your game. Yeah, they've done that for a couple of different releases. I think Cuphead, it was just a download code inside, if I'm not mistaken there. And then we've seen that several times with the Switch even, where they didn't even want to have the cost associated with getting a cartridge and all of that in the casing. But it does go beyond just the instruction manual, because that's what people see the instruction manual mostly as. But there were a lot of cool Easter eggs hidden in there, different backstories for characters that you wouldn't know otherwise. Like just playing through the game, you wouldn't get that information. And sometimes you'll come across some pretty cool things in there that you wouldn't expect. Like, for example, Metal Gear Solid 3, the artwork in there is great, but there's an entire section where it's like a comic just kind of setting up part of the story. So, like I said, people look at instruction manuals and are like, well, what do you need that for? Most of the time, the in-game tutorial will tell you how to do this stuff, but there was so much more to those manuals back in the day. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's a whole thing around Horizon Forbidden West and Sony, the way they're approaching the situation with PS4 and PS5 and the upgrade path. You think they're making things way more complicated than it needs to be, especially with Microsoft and how they're doing things with smart delivery. Also, what about the 2 events we have coming up for Sony and THQ Nordic? Give me your best game prediction announcements down below in the comments. Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time for Newswave.